I'll always want the intermediate to be more stable. I'll always want the intermediate to be more stable. And because the intermediate overall has a positive charge, you know, plus I plus R effect. I hope you're understanding what I want to convey. Plus I or plus R effect over the ring is going to stabilize the intermediate. Plus I or plus R effect, groups having plus I plus R effect. We have done this in basic organic chemistry classes. You know, if it was having a pair of electrons, a ring having oxygen, nitrogen, chlorine, whatever, having a pair of electrons. The language I had used then was the pair of electrons is going to bring negative charge over ortho and para positions. I had said that this is more inviting, this negative at ortho para positions is more inviting for the electrophile. And that way I had explained the activating nature of these groups. I repeat, I want a more convincing response. If there is a pair of electrons, this is the language I had used. It gets oscillated at ortho and para positions, and that makes it more tempting for the electrophile to come and attack. And this is why a phenol or aniline or an atom having a pair of electrons was going to make this ring more activated. Mind you, towards electrophilic substitution, because the general reactions are going to be electrophilic substitutions over an aromatic ring or an aromatic compound. Also, the same molecule is going to look still more reactive, maybe a different choice of words, a different approach. Now I am talking of the stability of the intermediate. Now because it is positively charged, it is going to be stabilized by plus I plus R effect. See, yes or no? Yes, so, by plus R effect, by hyperconjugation in toluene or by plus I effect, plus R hyperconjugation or plus I is also going to stabilize the intermediate, and again because stabilizes the intermediate, it is also going to increase the rate and the yield of the process. I hope we can move on. So we all understand plus I plus R effect in the ring is going to make it more activated towards electrophilic substitution. If we analyze the graph more closely, these are the two transitory states. I might want to call it transitory state 1. This is transitory state 2. I hope there is no confusion over understanding of the state of the intermediate. This represents the energy profile or the energy state of the intermediate. Now, these two might be looked upon as two transitory states formed, where this is where the electrophile is gradually cementing its position. This is where the electrophile is gradually cementing its position. That hydrogen bond is about to be broken. It's not started breaking. And this is the state where this bond has started to move out. Obviously, it's a downhill process then, because, and it's a fast step because it's just going out, we saw before, is going to make it aromatic again. Fair enough? So maybe two transitory states where this is the state where the electrophile is trying to cement its position. This is the state where the electrophile has substantially cemented its position, and henceforth the carbon hydrogen bond is breaking. Now because it's a fast step, it doesn't matter whether it's a carbon hydrogen, carbon deuterium, or a carbon tritium bond, and that is why there is no primary kinetic isotopic effect. Plus I plus R is going to help in the rate and the yield of the process. Also, whenever you have a two-step process of this kind, this is the fast step, and this is the slow step, the first slow step. This is the transitory state. This is the intermediate state of the sigma complex. You'll want the value to be more deep. You'll want it to be more stable for more yield. I have said that. For which you'll want plus I plus R groups over the ring. Understand one more fact. So far, I've been talking generally about this K1 and this K2. Which are supposed the rate constants. Which are supposed the rate constants corresponding to the activation energies. The actual value, the actual difference is of EA1 and EA2. Because I am drawing the energy profile, the difference is actually EA1, EA2. I am writing it K1, K2, because I want to deal in terms of the rate constant. Now, this activation energy is greater than this activation energy. That makes this the slow step and the second one the fast step. But let's also understand a slow step would be more reversible in nature. Always a slow step bears more, it's more vulnerable to being reversible. A slow step is more vulnerable to be reversible. And at the state, which is the state of the intermediate, the energy state of the intermediate, it's moving forward. It's moving forward first of all because it's a fast step, smaller activation energy, because it's going to make it aromatic again. All of us buy these ideas. But staying at this point, it could move forward or backwards. It could move forward or backwards. And when it decides either to move forward or backwards, for forward, this activation energy is into consideration. For backwards, this is not into consideration. What's into consideration is this value, which is the reverse of the first step. Now, let me replace this with EA1 only. EA1, EA2. I know higher value of EA will mean smaller value of K and vice versa. Because this EA1 is much more than EA2. The second step is the fast step, the first step is the slow step. What I want to convey now is, first of all, more slower a step, more are the chances of it getting reversible. And deciding at this point, the intermediate will decide to move forward or backwards depending upon the value of EA2 and not EA1, because to move to this zenith point, it will consider this amount of energy. I hope you are getting me. Now the fact that this EA2 happens to be much smaller than this amount of energy as well, it right away moves forward. So the second step is not that reversible. Because this is a smaller energy difference, this is a smaller energy barrier, not only compared to the first activation energy starting from time t is equal to 0, but also the reverse of step 1 makes this even more easy to happen. You getting me? First of all, we have seen this umpteen times. EA1 much more than EA2 tells you the story. This is slow, this is fast. What I want to convey now is, staying at this point, an intermediate will want to move forward or backward depending upon the values of this EA2 and not the value of EA1, but this value, which is the difference of EA2 and EA1 in this case. I mean, it also happens to be a difference, between this intermediate to this hillock. I might want to call it EA minus 1 by minus 1 because it's called K minus 1 generally. By EA minus 1, I talk of the chances of the reversibility of step 1. That EA1 is much larger than EA2 makes this a slow step, makes this a fast step, all right. But I repeat, staying at this point, the intermediate will gauge at the values of EA2 and EA minus 1, and lesser the difference between EA2 and EA minus 1, take down, lesser the difference between EA2 and EA minus 1, lesser the difference between EA2 and EA minus 1, more reversible will be the reaction. More reversible will be the reaction, because in the course of knowing different electrophilic substitution processes, there will be some reactions which will be more reversible. Iodination of benzene for that reason. All books, everywhere it's given. Iodination of benzene is more reversible. It's quite reversible, So you need an oxidizing agent to move it forward. So let's understand where from this reversibility pitches in, or what makes a process more reversible. First of all, a slow step is supposed to be more reversible, and in this case, from the point of intermediate, lesser the difference between these two energy barriers, that much confusing it is for the intermediate. It can either move forward or backward, and more reversibility pitches into the process. More difference, it's more unanimous in decision making, it moves forward, and certainly the second step has to be the fast step as far as the mechanism proposed. Fair enough? But in case of reversibility, these two differences matter. If these two values, EA minus 1 and EA2, are more closer, then the process becomes more reversible. Fair enough? Because you understand, out here it doesn't bother about EA1, it bothers about EA minus 1, because it has to move back and it needs only this much of energy barrier to cross. So this is the basic mechanism of almost all electrophilic substitutions. So digging into the particular reactions, we'll just want to identify the nature of the electrophile and maybe some finer details about the mechanism, but this has to be a general mechanism proposed. Let me tell you about some more common experimental results, which also helps us in micro analysis of the mechanism. Everything which we learned till now is going to be accepted, but a more micro analysis will require more experimental observations. Let me share a few experimental results with you. Suppose if everything we proposed by now is the real case, with the role of AlClC was of an electrophile generator only, let me treat this molecule with DCl. DCl will be like HCl, the difference being instead of protium you have deuterium, and DCl is supposed to furnish D plus, DCl is supposed to furnish D plus. Now this D plus attacking the ring, I repeat, D plus attacking the ring and getting exchanged by H plus is expected. I've told you in the past, every time you have a carbocationic mechanism, D plus exchanging H plus is always energetically feasible. Haven't I told you before? Because going by the basic principles again, CD bond energy more than CH, this is the amount of energy required to break a bond and the amount of energy evolved when the bond is formed. Say yes or no? Yes. So that means given an opportunity, CH will always want to get exchanged to CD, CH will want to become CD, because to break CH lesser energy has to be supplied, and when CD is formed, more energy is liberated. To break CH, lesser energy is supplied, and when a CD is formed, more energy is evolved. So energetically it's always favorable. Energetically it's always favorable to have a carbon hydrogen replaced by a carbon deuterium. I'm providing that opportunity to the system, by treating it with DCl. And then I'm expecting it to become hexadeuterobenzene. I'm expecting it to become hexadeuterobenzene. Say yes or no? This is what I'm expecting. It doesn't happen. Now let me try this one. DCl in presence of AlCl3. DCl in presence of AlCl3. Now this happens, you know. Now this happens. And then I might repeat the same story, you know. I'll say that the presence of AlCl3 is required. The presence of AlCl3 is required because AlCl3 will come in handy in, you know, abstracting Cl minus and generating D plus. So that's again maybe the role played by AlCl3. That's again maybe the role played by AlCl3. During the course of this reaction, during the course of this change, there are more physical observations. Those physical observations are the solution becomes green colored, I mean, and conducting in nature. During the course of benzene becoming hexadeuterobenzene, you know, when I treat this with DCl in presence of AlCl3, it becomes green colored and conducting in nature. Generally, color I have told you in the past are because of presence of charged particles. Colors are generally supposed to have their origin, or that's a possible origin, presence of charged particles. So there also it makes a point, you know, that AlCl3 is involved in the formation of D plus. Now I repeat, what we are proposing again is AlCl3 acting as a Lewis acid, AlCl3 acting as a Lewis acid, getting hold of the Cl minus, forming AlCl4 minus and D plus. Fine. And then because of the presence of charged particles, I'm expecting it to be colored. So far so good. Now if it's because of the presence of these charged particles, courtesy DCl and AlCl3, even if I mix DCl and AlCl3 without benzene around, there should be a color formation. That doesn't happen. First of all, only DCl, an expected change doesn't take place. With AlCl3, yes, it gets transformed. In the process, the solution has some behavior, change in physical and electrical behavior, which, you know, are generally explained by presence of charged particles. Those charged particles, in accordance to my mechanism proposed, is presence of AlCl4 minus and D plus. But the strange fact is, if you don't do it with an aromatic compound, if you don't have benzene, mixing only DCl and AlCl3 doesn't produce any color, doesn't give you a conducting solution. Now that's a little strange, because when I'm talking of AlCl3 acting as a Lewis acid itself, when I'm talking of AlCl3 working exclusively upon DCl, then benzene is not featuring in the frame, you know. Only once D plus is getting generated because of AlCl3, I expect this D plus to start attacking benzene, and then the rest of the mechanism will take its course. But before that, benzene is not coming into the frame. I repeat, mixing only DCl and AlCl3 is producing no color. You read benzene along, this means it's not about these ions which are generating color. Benzene also features into the scheme of the formation of ions. Also a few more facts. AlCl3 playing its part with DCl is understood. AlCl3 playing its part with chlorine might also be understood, because you know AlCl3 will take Cl minus, it might take Br minus. Later on, we study reactions like the following. You know, this is reacting with alkene in presence of H plus. Benzene reacting with propene in presence of H plus. Acid. You know, H plus will trigger an electromagnetic attack here. Say yes or no? H plus will trigger an electromagnetic effect. That means this might take this H plus, this might take H plus, this will take H plus to become a more stable 2-degree carbocation. Say yes or no? And then this 2-degree carbocation could act as the electrophile. This could act as the electrophile. Now this will want to go over the benzene ring, substitute H plus, and the product would be a molecule of this kind. You call it cumene. You know, isopropyl benzene is called cumene. So you get isopropyl benzene from benzene by treating it with propene in presence of H plus. Fair enough? The same could be brought about. See, by treating this with 2-propanol, please be attentive. The same could be brought about by treating it with 2-propanol in presence of H plus. What will happen now? Tell me. Alcohol H plus, what will happen? Loss of water. Yes, loss of water. You know, with an OH group and an alcohol, H plus goes on attacks here. I'm not repeating the same story I've said again umpteen times. Loss of water. I hope all of you are there with me. H plus with an alcohol, loss of water. Yet again you get the same intermediate. So an alkene with H plus or an alcohol with H plus, you get the same carbocation, you get the same product. Both of which could be explained. Now trust me, this reacts with propene in presence of AlCl3. I repeat, the role played by AlCl3 could be explained here, because that's how it's generating the electrophile here. In case of the other molecules, you know, we have other ways of generating corresponding electrophiles. When I find AlCl3 plays a role with propene as well, now that's a little difficult to explain, you know. Because we have not done this in the past. We have not, you know, from a pi bond, we have not done it in the past. It's not like we've had a Lewis acid which steals the pi bond away. It doesn't happen that way. So these are the results which are difficult to, difficult to explain. But the mechanism which we have accepted till now, and many more, many more observations are going to follow, which will require a more detailed and a more particular and more correct understanding of the mechanism. Although everything which you have learned by now, which is about the formation of the sigma complex leading you to the final product, is going to be bought, is going to be fine, and is going to give you marks in all the exams. But a better understanding is required so that we can have these observations explained as well. But before we go into the more detailed study, I'll want that all of you are understanding till this point. AlCl3 only with DCl is not giving you those observations. So DCl, AlCl3 and the ring should feature together for all of this to happen. The mechanism proposed is AlCl3 steals away an anion, gives an electrophile, and that electrophile attacks the ring. But only a mixture of these two doesn't create a situation like that. You don't even know whether AlCl3 reacts with DCl in this way or not. You don't even know AlCl3 is going to take out Cl minus with DCl in absence of benzene or not. So chances are that all of this is going to happen along with benzene. And what's the role played by benzene then? Because benzene features much later on. So I know that it's not completely correct, but yes, it's partly right for the understanding of the basic understanding of the mechanism. And then we go after, you know, more detailed analysis, which proposes the following. AlCl3 or a Lewis acid attacking a molecule and generating an electrophile independently, and that electrophile attacking the ring again independently, is not the real stuff, is not the real story. The story is any potential molecule, any molecule which could potentially react with the ring, you know, first of all interacts with the ring. Suppose DCl in this case, it interacts with the ring, which is not a very concrete, but you know, a loose association with the ring. First of all, I'll want you to buy this 3 electrons, 3 pair of electrons, all set in oscillation. So it's not a structure like this, or you know, the other ascending structures. It's a hybrid of this kind. It's a hybrid of this kind. And whenever you have a circle like this inscribed into this hexagon, this means you have electron density both above and below the ring, both above and below the ring. You know, all carbon atoms are sp2 hybridized, and pz orbitals, if you recall, if this happens to be xy plane, all the carbon atoms have used sp2 px py orbitals, and all the pz orbitals with 2 lobes, one above and one below the plane, have, you know, got delocalized to give you an electron cloud both above and below the ring. That's the real structure of benzene molecule. It's 2-dimensional, where all the carbon atoms and the hydrogen atoms are in one plane. If this is the xy plane, all the carbon atoms in sp2 must have used px and py, and then only in that case all pg can merge, you know, all pz orbitals can merge freely, and because it's bilobe, one lobe above the board, another lobe behind the board, there is going to be a ring of electrons both above and behind the plane of the molecule. Fair enough? So what happens then is, first of all, a potential reacting molecule or a reactive molecule is going to form a loose association with this ring density, which we are going to now name as a pi complex. It's called a pi complex. And you know, this pi complex, the name is also apt because pi always stands for a loose association. Pi stands for a loose or a weak association. A pi bond is a weak bond, a loose bond. So first of all, a pi complex is formed. And then it needs a Lewis acid like AlCl3. Then it needs a Lewis acid like AlCl3. Then it needs a Lewis acid like AlCl3 to convert this pi complex into the sigma complex. So now what happens is AlCl3 is going to take the Cl minus, which is attached to the ring, and you know, as this bond gets strengthened, as this chlorine comes closer to aluminium, this deuterium goes closer to the ring. So it happens this way. First of all, a loose or a weak association develops, which is called a pi complex, and because of AlCl3 it matures to a more concrete association, a more defined association, which is called a sigma complex. Now this positive charge sigma complex, first of all this structure is going to look like this. Realize the rest of the carbon atoms where you have resonance operating might be sp2 hybridized, but these two bonds you know, in the valent complex will always lie above and below this ring. So I might want to write this deuterium, and you know, the hydrogen over this carbon, which is going to get substituted above and below the plane of the ring.